Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy, and you're reading with Jimmy. We're reading the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. This is the Miller's Tale. You should have finished the Knight's Tale, and now this is the Miller's Tale. Ready? Oh, by the way, it's translated by Theodore Morrison. Lots of translators. We're not reading the original Chaucer. We're reading a translation. Prologue to the Miller's Tale. So when the knight finished, no one, young or old, in the whole company, but said he had told a noble story. Do you remember it, ladies and gentlemen? It was a long one, 4 parts, but it was good. One that ought to be preserved and kept alive in memory, especially the gentlefolk, each one. Our good host laughed and swore, "The game's begun. The ball is rolling. This is going well. Let's see who has another tale to tell. Come, match the knight's tale if you can, Sir Monk." So he calls on the monk, but then the miller, who by this time was so drunk he looked quite bloodless, and who had hardly sat his horse, was never one to doff his hat, or stand on courtesy for any man. Like Pilate in the church place, he began to bellow, quote, "Arms and blood and bones," he swore. "I know a noble yarn to square the score with that knight's tale, one that will leave us quits." Our host could see that the ale had bleared his wits. "Robin," he said, "hold on a minute, brother." So now we know the name of the miller. It's Robin, right? So the host says, "Hold on a minute, brother. Some better man shall come first with another. Let's do this right. You tell yours by the by." "God's soul," the miller told him. So if you remember when the miller started here, what does he say here? "Arms and blood and bones." And now he says, "God's soul." That's the way they swore in those days, right? Said the miller, "That I won't, either I speak or I'm going to go my own way." "The devil, you say?" "Well, say what you have to say," answered the host. "You are a fool. Your head is overpowered." "Now," the miller said, "everyone listen. But first I will put forward, that I am drunk." I know it by my sound. If I can't get my words out, put the blame on Southwark Ale. I ask you in God's name. I'll tell you a holy legend of the life. A carpenter lived at one time with his wife, and how a student put horns on his head. Horns on his head is cockled. That means he's going to have an affair or something like that on the carpenter's wife. So this is going to be a bawdy tale. "The reeve," replied the reeve. "Stifle your noise," he said. "Forget your ignorant, drunken bawdiness. It is a sin and great foolishness to injure any man by defamation and to give women such a reputation. Tell us of other things. You'll find no lack." But promptly this drunkard miller answered back, "Oswald, my brother." So who's Oswald? The reeve. See how we're finding slowly but surely the names of these pilgrims? "Oswald, my brother, true as babes are suckled, the man who has no wife, he is no cuckold. I don't say for this reason that you are. There are plenty of faithful wives, both near and far, always 1,000 good for every bad, and you know this yourself, unless you're mad. I see that you are angry with my tale. But why? You've got a wife, no less by God do I. But I wouldn't, for the oxen in my plow shoulder more than I need by thinking how. I may myself, for aught I know, be one. I'll certainly believe that I am none." What is he saying? I believe I'm one. I'm cuckold. That means his wife cheated on him. So he says, I ought to know, for all I know, I might be one. "A husband mustn't be curious for his life about God's secrets or about his wife. If she gives him plenty and he's in the clover, There's no need to worry about what's left over. He's little in the bag, isn't he? The miller, to make the best of it, I can, who's I? I, that's the narrator of these tales. I refuse to hold his tongue for any man, but told his tale like any low-born clown. I am sorry that I have to set it down. So the narrator is apologizing for having to write the miller's tale. And all of you people, for God's love, I pray, whose taste is higher, do not think that I say a word with evil purpose. I must rehearse their stories one and all, both better and worse, or I play false with my matter, that is clear. Whoever therefore may not wish to hear, turn over the page and choose another tale. For small and great he'll find enough, no fail, of things from history, touching courtliness and virtue too, and holiness. And if you choose wrong, don't lay it on my head. You know the miller couldn't be called well bred. And so with the reeve and many more as well, and both of them had bawdy tales to tell, reflect a little, and don't hold me to blame. There's no sense making earnest out of game. Now, isn't that sound advice for reading anything? Right? Turn the page if you don't want to hear this. So he's warning you, the narrator, the anonymous narrator of the Canterbury Tales is telling us he's got to write this down in all fairness, but if you don't want to hear this, just turn the page. And he's also warning you that the reeve is going to tell a tale to tell too. So let's go on. So putting horns on someone means to accuse them of infidelity or being unfaithful in a relationship, especially implying that they are acting like a cuckold, a term for a man whose partner is cheating on them with horns. This is very medieval, right? Very medieval. You were cuckold. This phrase originates from a long-standing cultural association of horns with adultery. Got it? Okay. The miller's tale. And remember, he's a little tipsy. There used to be a rich old oaf who made his home in Oxford, a carpenter by trade. He took in boarders, and with him used to live a student who knew what study has to give. But he was poor, and he let his fancies turn to astrology, and that was his whole concern. And what is an oaf? Have you used that word lately? It's a stupid, uncultured, clumsy person. You oaf! That's a word that kind of disappears from our language sometimes, doesn't it? And he had smattered up some propositions, who's he, the student, by means of which he could predict conditions. If people asked him at a given hour whether to look for sunshine or for a shower, he was a meteorologist. You know how reliable they are. No offense. Or want to know whatever might befall, events of all sorts, I can't count them all. Who's I? Right? The miller. In this case, the I now is the miller, because why? Isn't that not the narrator? That's the miller's tale. He was known as, everything from now on, the I, the first person, is the miller talking, unless somehow the narrator pokes in there and we hear him. So let's continue. He was known as Handy Nicholas, this student. So there's a little footnote here. If we drop down, there's a little footnote from Theodore Morrison that Chaucer word is hinde, implying I take it both ready in hand and in grading. Nicholas was a Johnny on the spot and also had a way with him. So he's interpreting the word handy. He was known as Handy Nicholas. Clever Nicholas, Johnny on the spot Nicholas. Well-versed in love. He knew how to be prudent, going about unnoticed, sly and sure. In looks no girl was ever more demure. Lodged at this carpenter's, he lived alone. He had a room, and that was made his own. Festooned, adorned, with herbs, and he was sweet himself, as licorice or ginger. Remember, they had no mouthwash in those days. Or I don't know if they practice oral hygiene. On a shelf above his bed's head, neatly stowed apart, he kept the trappings that went with his art. His astrolabe, his books, among the rest, thick ones and thin ones, lay his Alchemist. That's a treatise on astronomy and mathematics written by Ptolemy in the 2nd century. So he's got books. Why? Because he's a student, scholar. And he and the counters for his abacus as well. Abacus was like a slide rule. You counted on it. Over his cupboard, a red curtain fell, and up above a pretty zither lay. Zither was like a harp, on which at night so sweetly he would play, that with the music the whole room would ring. Angelus to the Virgin, he would sing, Christian songs. And then the song that's known as the King's Note. Blessings were called down on his merry throat. So this sweet scholar passed his time, his end being to eat and to live upon his friend. Notice the word live upon his friend. Who? The carpenter, right? This carpenter had newly wed a wife, and he loved her better than he loved his life. He was jealous, for she was 18 in age. He tried to keep her close, as in a cage, for she was wild and young, and old was he, and guessed that he might smack of cuckoldry. Remember? She's young, he's old. She doesn't want to betray him, right? His ignorant wits had never chanced to strike on Cato's word that a man should wed his like. Cato, Roman, right, should wed his like. Men ought to wed where their conditions point, for youth and age are often out of joint. But now, since he had fallen in the snare, he must, like other men, endure his care. Fair this young woman was, her body trim, and as mink so graceful and so slim. She wore a striped belt that was all of silk, a piecework apron, white as morning milk. About her loins and down her lap she wore, white was her smock, her collar both before, and on the back embroidered all about, in coal black silk, inside as well as out. Notice how he's painting the picture with words, because there's no television, there's no cameras, right? So he paints with words. It's important to use your imagination when I read. And like her collar, her white laundered bonnet had ribbons of the same embroidery on it. Wide was her silken fillet, worn up high, and for a fact that she had a willing eye, she plucked each brow into a little bow, and each one was as black as any soul. She was by far a prettier sight to see than the new blossoms on a spring pear tree, and softer than the wood of an old wether. Down from her belt there hung a purse of leather, with silken tassels and with studs of brass. No man so wise, wherever people pass, who could imagine in this world at all a wench like her, a pretty little doll. Far brighter was the dazzle of her hue than a coin struck in the tower, fresh and new. As for her song, it twittered from her head, sharp as a swallow perching on a shed. Pardon me, it's hard to say, perching on a shed. And she would skip and sport as a young ram or calf would gambol, following his dam. So an hibiscus was also an oblong frame used to count for calculations. Remember, okay? Back to Mrs. Carpenter. Her mouth was sweet as honey ale, or mead, or apples in the hay stored up for need. And she was skittish as an untrained colt, slim as a mast and straighter than a bolt. And her simple collar bore a big brooch pin, wide as a shield's boss underneath her chin. High up along her legs she laced her shoes, and she was Pixney. She was a primrose, for any lord to tumble in his bed, or a good yeoman honestly to wed. Now, sir, and again, sir, this is how it was. Who's saying that? The miller, right? A day came round when handy Nicholas, her husband gone to Osney, well away, so her husband goes on a trip, began to fool with this young wife and play. These students always have a wily head. He caught her in between her legs and said, "Sweetheart, unless I have my will with you, I'll die for stifled love, by all that's true." And he held her by the haunches hard. "I vow I'll die unless you love me here and now. Sure as my soul," he said, "is God's to save." Making advances. She shied just as a colt does in a trave, a frame for restraining a horse, and turned her head hard from him, this young wife. And she said, quote, "I will not kiss you on my life." "Why, stop it now," she said. "Stop, Nicholas, or I will cry out, 'Help, help,' and alas, be good enough to take your hands away." "Mercy," this Nicholas began to pray, and spoke so well that it poured it on so fast that she promised she would be his love at last, and swore by St. Thomas a Becket, Saint of Kent, that she would serve him when she could invent or spy out some good opportunity. Quote, "My husband is so full of jealousy, you must be watchful and take care," she said. Or well, I know I would be good as dead. You must go secretly about this business." Nicholas says, "Don't give a thought to that. A student has been wasting time at school if he can't make a carpenter a fool." And so they agreed that these two, and they swore to watch for their chance, as I have said before. When Nicholas had spanked her haunches neatly, and done all that I have spoken of, he sweetly gave her a kiss, and then took his zither and loudly played and sang his music with her. So he spanked her haunches. It happened to the parish church one day to do Christ's works, this good wife made her way. And as she went, her forehead cast a glow as bright as noon, for she had washed it so. It glistened when she finished with her work. And serving this church was a parish clerk, whose name was Absolon, a ruddy man. Now we got a new character, Absolon. So she goes to church, washed her face. She's bright, shiny, maybe because who knows why. And now we meet another character, Absolon, whose goose-gray eyes and curls like a great fan that shone like gold on his neatly parted head. His tunic was light blue. Remember, he's painting the picture with his words, and his nose red. And he had patterns that had been cut through, like the windows of St. Paul's in either shoe. He wore above his tunic, fresh and gay, a surplice white as a blossom on a spray. A merry devil, as true as God can save. He knew how to let blood, trim hair, and shave. So he was like a barber, too. Or write a deed of land in proper face. So he's like a lawyer. And he could dance in 20 different ways in the Oxford fashion. And sometimes he would sing a loud falsetto to his fiddle string or his guitar. No tavern anywhere, but he had furnished entertainment there. Yet if a man broke wind, he winced a bit and spoke with delicacy, no word unfit. You know what it means to break wind, right? Do I have to translate? This Absolon, so jolly and so gay, he went about with a censer each saint's day. Censer, a little censer, that's that golden thing, if you've gone to a Catholic mass, that they put a piece of charcoal in there and they put some incense in there. So he went about with a censer each saint's day, censing the parish women one and all. Many the doubting look that he let fall. He doubts on them. He likes girls. And especially on this carpenter's wife, to look at her, he thought, oh, that was a good life. She was so trim and so fit for lechery. You see how Miller's telling us how this guy's mind is working? If she had only been a mouse and he the cat, I think he would have made short work of catching her, this jolly parish clerk. Had such a heart full of love hankerings that he would not take the women's offerings. No, 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 he said. It would be not polite to take their offerings because he would go around begging for the church, right? The moon, when darkness fell, shone full and bright, and Absolon, always ready for love's sake, with his guitar to be made up and awake, he made toward the carpenters, brisk and amorous, and went along until he reached the house a little after the cocks began to crow. Under the casement he sang, sweet and low, quote, "Dear lady, by your will, be kind to me." And he strummed his guitar in harmony. This love-long singing woke the carpenter, who said to his wife, "What, Alison, don't you hear? Absolon is singing under our bedroom wall." So he's there singing, and now we know that the carpenter's wife's name is Alison, right? And now we're going to know the carpenter's name. "Yes, God knows, John," Alison answered. "I hear it all. What would you like?" In this way things went till jolly Absolon was woe begone, sad, miserable in appearance, for wooing her, awake all day, all night and day. He combed his curls and he made himself look gay. He swore to be her slave, and he used all means to court her with his gifts and go-betweens. He sang and quavered like a nightingale. He sent her sweet spiced wine and seasoned ale. Cakes were piping hot, mead sweet and honey, and since he was town-bred, he offered money. For some are won by wealth, some are won by somewhat, are won by wealth, and some no less by blows, and others yet by gentleness. Sometimes, to keep his talents in her gaze, he acted Herod in mysterious plays, high on the stage. But what can help his case? For so she loves this handy Nicholas, that Absolon is living in a bubble. He has nothing but a laugh for his horrible trouble. So he's trying to do something with John's wife, and Alison will have none. She'll have none of it because she likes Nicholas. You see the love triangle here. And if you remember the Knight's Tale, which was about two knights, right, that they fought over. They had a big, right, a tournament over a woman. This is very different. This is a bawdy tale, right? A true love triangle. The other one, the Knight's Tale, was not. So that Absolon living in a bubble, he has nothing but a laugh for all his trouble, and she leaves his earnestness to scorn to cool, and she makes this Absolon her proper fool. For this is a true proverb, and it's no lie, quote, "It always happens that the nigh and highly will benefit from the absent sufferer." So that's a proverb. It always happens that the nigh and slyly will make the absent suffer. So it's said, an Absolon may rage or lose his head. But just because he was farther from her sight, this nearby Nicholas got in his light. So now hold up your chin, handy Nicholas, for Absolon may wail and sing, alas. And one Saturday, when the carpenter had gone to Osney, Nicholas and Alison agreed that he would use his wit and guile this simple, jealous husband to beguile. And if it happened that the game went right, she would sleep in his arms the livelong night. So the husband goes away and they plot together, right? For this was his desire and hers as well. At once, with no more words, this Nicholas fell to working out his plan, and he would not tarry, but quietly to his room he began to carry food and drink to last him out a day. Here's the plan. or more than one, and told her what to say. If her husband asked her about Nicholas, she would say that she had no notion where he was, and that she hadn't laid eyes on him for all day long. He must be sick, or something must be wrong. No matter how her maid had called and cried, he would not answer, whatever might betide. This was the plan. And Nicholas kept away, shut in his room for the whole Saturday. He ate and slept, or did as he thought best, till Sunday, when the sun was going to rest. This carpenter began to wonder greatly where Nicholas was, and what might ail him lately. Now, by St. Thomas, I begin to dread all isn't well with Nicholas, he said. He hasn't, God forbid, died suddenly. The world is ticklish these days, certainly. Today I saw a corpse to church go past, a man that I saw working Monday last. People are dying. Plague. Go up, he told his chore boy. Call and shout, knock with stone. Find out what it's all about and let me know. So the boy went up and pounded and yelled as if his wits had been confounded. Quote, What? How? What's going, Master Nicholas? How can you sleep all day? But for all his fuss, he was wasted, but he could not hear a word. He noticed at the bottom of a board a hole that the cat used when she wished to creep into the room, and through it he looked in deep, and finally of Nicholas he caught sight. This Nicholas sat gaping there upright as though his wits were addled by the moon. When it was new, the boy went down and soon had told his master how he had seen the man. So he's sitting upright in his bed like he's in a trance. The carpenter, when he heard this news, began to cross himself. Heaven help us, Saint Fristitude. Little can we foresee what may betide. The man's astronomy has turned his wit, or else he's in some agonizing fit. I always knew that it would turn out so. What God has hidden is not for men to know. Aye, blessed is the ignorant man indeed. Blessed is he that only knows his creed. Fizzleworth is an English princess. She's credited with the founding of a monastery. So he says, help us, Saint Fristwide. So fared another scholar of the sky. For walking, blessed is he that only knows the creed. For walking in the meadows once to spy upon the stars and what they might foretell, down in the clay pit suddenly he fell. He overlooked that. By St. Thomas, though, I'm sorry for handy Nicholas. I'll go and scold him roundly for his studying. He thinks he's studying too much. If so I may, by Jesus, heaven's king. Give me a staff and I'll pry up from the floor while you, Robin, are heaving at the door. He'll quit his books, I think. He took his stand outside the room. The boy had a strong hand, and by the hasp heaved the door open at once, and the door fell flat. With gaping countenance, this Nicholas sat, studying the air, as still as stone. He was in black despair. The carpenter believed, and hard about the shoulders caught and shook him, and he cried out rudely, quote, What? How? What is it? Look down on us. Wake up. Think of Christ's passion. Nicholas, I'll sign you with the cross to keep away the elves and things. He thinks he's bewitched, so he's going to give him the sign of the cross. And he began to say, facing the quarters of the house each side, and on the threshold of the door outside, the night spell, quote, Jesu, Saint Benedict, from every wicked thing this house protect. Choosing his time, this handy Nicholas produced a dreadful sigh and said, Alas, this world must be all destroyed straight away. What? Asked the carpenter. What's that you say? Do as we do, we working men, and think of God, Nicholas answered. Give me a drink, and afterwards I'll tell you privately of something that concerns us, you and me, and I'll tell you only among all men. This carpenter went down and came again, bearing a draught of strong ale, a full quart, And as soon as each of them had drunk his part, Nicholas shut the door, made it fast, and sat down with the carpenter at last, and spoke to him. "My host," he said, "John, dear, swear now by all that you hold sacred here, that not to any man will you betray my confidence. And what I'm about to say is Christ's own secret. If you tell a soul, you are undone, and this will be the toll. If you betray me, you shall go stark mad." "Now Christ forbid it by his holy blood," answered this simple man. "I don't go babbling. No, though I say it myself, I don't like gabbing. Speak up as you like, I'll never tell. Not wife nor child, by him that herald hell." "So now, John," said Nicholas, "this is no lie. I've discovered through astrology and studying the moon that shines so bright that Monday next, a quarter through the night, a rain will fall, and such a mad wild spate that Noah's flood was never half so great. This world," he said, "in less time than an hour, shall drown entirely in that hideous shower. Yes, every man shall drown and lose his life." "Alas," said the carpenter, "for my wife, my Alison, shall she drown?" For grief as this, he nearly tumbled down. And said, "But is there nothing to be done?" "Why, happily there is for anyone who'll take my advice," Handy Nicholas said. See how he keeps using the adjective handy on top of Nicholas? "You mustn't expect to follow your own head. For what said Solomon, whose words were true? Proceed by counsel, and you'll never rule. If you will act on good advice, no fail, I promise, and without a mast or sail, to see that she's preserved, you and I. Haven't you heard how Noah was kept dry when warned by Christ beforehand that he discovered that the whole earth and the water should be covered?" "Yes," said the carpenter, pardon me, "long ago, long ago." And then again said Nicholas, "And don't you know that grief that they all had trying to embark until Noah could get his wife into the ark? That was a time when Noah, I dare say, would gladly have given his best black wethers away, if she could only have had a ship alone. And therefore, do you know what must be done? This demands haste. And with a hasty thing, people can't stop for talk and tarrying. Here, start out and get into the house right off for each of us a tub or a kneading trowel. Above all, making sure that they are large, in which we'll float away like in a barge. And put in food enough to last a day. Beyond won't matter, because the flood will fall away and early the next morning. Take care not to spill a word to your boy Robin, nor to Jill, your maid. I can't save her. Don't ask why. I will not tell God's secrets. No, not I. Let it suffice until your wits are mad to have a good as grace as Noah had. I'll save your wife for certain, never doubt it. Now go along and make good time about it." A stock scene, and that's a little footnote there if you'd like to go back and look at it. "But when you have, for her and you and me, brought to the house these 3 kneading tubs, all 3, then you must hang them under the roof up high, to keep our plans from any watchful eye." Now, use your imagination, ladies and gentlemen, and ask yourself, what's this guy telling him to do? Hang 3 tubs from the ceiling. Big tubs to hold 1 person each. "When you have done exactly as I have said, and put in snug our victuals and our bread, food and bread, also an axe to cut the ropes apart, so when the rain comes we can make our start. And when you've broken a hole high in the gable, facing the garden plot above the stable, to give us free passage out, each one, then, as soon as the great fall of rain is done, you'll swim as merrily, I undertake, as paddles the white duck beyond her drake. And then I shall call, 'How, Alison? How, John?' and be cheerful, for the flood will soon be gone. And Master Nicholas, 'What ho?' you'll say, and 'Good morning, I see you clearly, for it's day.' And then we shall lord it up for the rest of our life over the world like Noah and his wife, because everyone else will be dead, right? According to what this guy's spinning. Well, Jimmy, I don't believe a word this guy's saying. Well, don't forget, people are taken, right? A lot of times. But one thing I must warn you downright. So this is still Nicholas talking, right? Use every care that on that selfsame night when we have taken ship and climbed aboard our tubs, no one of us must speak a single word. We nor call, nor cry, but we have to pray with all his heart. It is God's will. You must hang far apart, you and your wife, for there must be no sin between you. No more in a look than in every deed. Go now. The plans are drawn. Go, set to work, and may God spur you on. Tomorrow night, when all men are asleep, into our kneading troughs we will three creep, and sit there waiting and abides God's grace. Go along now. This isn't the time or place for me to talk at length or sermonize. The proverb says, don't waste time on the wise. You are so wise that there is no need to teach you. Go, save our lives. That's all I beseech you. So this simple carpenter went on his way. Many a time he said, alack the day. And to the wife that he had laid his secret bare, she knew it better than he. She was aware what this quaint bargain was designed to buy. She carried on as if about to die. And she said, alas, go get this business done. Help us escape, or we are dead, each one. I am your true, your faithful, wedded wife. Go, my dear husband, save us, limb and life. Great things in all truth can be emotions. Can emotions be? A man can perish through credulity, a tendency to be too ready to believe that something is true. So deep, shall I read that again? Great things in all truth can be emotions. Can the emotions be? A man can perish through credulity. So deep the print imagination makes that this simple carpenter, he quails and he quakes. He really sees, according to his notion, that Noah's flood come wallowing in an ocean to drown his Alison, right? His pet, his dear. He weeps and he wails, and he's gone in good cheer. And wretchedly he sighs, but he goes off and he gets himself a tub, a kneading trough, another tub, and has them on the sly sent home. And there in secret he hangs them high beneath the roof. He made 3 ladders, these with his own hands, he's a carpenter, and stowed in bread and cheese, a good jug of ale, plenty for a day. Before all this was done, he went away. His chore boy Robin and his wench likewise to London on some trumped-up enterprise. And so on Monday, when it drew toward night, he shut the door without a candlelight. And he saw that all was just as it should be, and shortly they went, clambering up, all 3. And they sat there still and let a moment pass. Now then, our father, Mum, said Nicholas. And Mum, said John. Mum, said Alison, and piously this carpenter went on saying his prayers. He sat there still, straining, trying to make out whether he heard it raining. Remember, it's pitch black outside. There's no candles, there's no light, there's no, there are no street lights, there's no light, total darkness. Did you ever try to work in total darkness? The dead of sleep for very weariness fell on this carpenter, as I should guess. At about curfew time, or a little more, his head was twisted, and that made him snore. His spirit groaned in its uneasiness. Down his ladder slipped Nicholas, and Alison too, downward she softly sped, and without a further word they went to bed, right where the carpenter slept on other nights. There were revels, and there were delights. And on this, Alison and Nicholas lay busy about their solace and their play until the bell for lauds began to ring. Church bell that signals, right, the start of the morning, Christian morning. And then the chancel friars began to sing. So there's Gregorian chants probably going on. And now on this Monday, woe begone and glum, for love, this parish clerk, this Absolon, was with some friends at Osney. And while there, he inquired about John the carpenter. And a member of the cloister drew him away out of the church, and he told him, I can't say. I haven't seen him working hereabouts since Saturday. The abbot sent him out for timber, I suppose. He'll go out and he'll stay at the granary a day or so, or else he's in his own house, possibly. I can't say for certain where he may be. Absolon all at once felt jolly and light, and he thought, now's the time to be awake all night. For certainly I haven't seen him making a stir about his doors since the day was breaking. Don't call me a man if when I hear the cock began to crow, I don't slip up and knock on the low window by his bedroom wall. To Alison at last I'll pour out a call, my love pangs, for at this point I can't miss. Whatever happens, I'll get at least a kiss. Some comfort by my word will come my way. I felt my mouth itching the whole livelong day. And that's a sign that kissing, at least, I dreamed that night that I was at a feast. So now I'm going to go and sleep an hour or two, and then I'll wake and I'll make the whole night through. Play the whole night through. So when the first cock crowed through the dark had come, up rose jolly lover Absolon. He was dressed very smartly. He was not remiss about the least point. He chewed licorice and cardamom to smell sweet, aromatic seed of a plant of the ginger family. So he's chewing Nicholas and a little ginger to make his breath sweet, and he combed his hair. Beneath his tongue he bore a sprig of Paris. A sprig of Paris is thyme, if you grow spices. So he puts a little sprig of Paris, of thyme, right underneath his tongue. He strode off to the carpenter's house and got beneath the window. It came so near the ground that it reached his chest. Remember, he's painting with words, so imagine this. Softly, with half a sound, he coughed. My honeycomb, sweet Alison, what are you doing, my sweet cinnamon? Awake, my sweetheart, my pretty bird. Awake, and give me your lips a word. Give from your lips a word, little enough you care for all my woe. How for your love I sweat wherever I go. No wonder I sweat and faint and cannot eat more than a girl as a lamb does for the teat. I pine. Yes, you're going to say, who's talking? Who talks like this? Just remember, this is poetry, please. Yes, truly, I so long for love. I mourn as if I were a turtle dove. She said, you jack fool, get away from here. So help me God, I won't sing Kiss Me, dear. I love another more than you. Get on, for Christ's sake, Absolon, or I'll throw a stone. The devil with you. Go, let me sleep. Ah, that true love should ever have to reap so evil a fortune, Absolon said. A kiss at least, please, if no more than this. Give me for love of Jesus and of me. And will you go away for that? She said. Truly, sweetheart, answered Absolon. All right, get ready, she said, for here I come. And softly said to Nicholas, keep still, and in a minute you can laugh your fill. She tells Nicholas, shh. This Absolon got down upon his knee and said, I am a lord of pure degree, for after this, I hope, comes more to savor. Sweetheart, your grace, and pretty bird, your favor. She undid the window quickly. That will do, she said. Be quick about it, and get through, for fear of neighbors will look out and spy. And Absolon wiped his mouth to make it dry. Now the night was pitch black, coal black all about. Her rear end through the window she thrust out. It fared no better or worse with Absolon than with his mouth to kiss her naked bum. And before he had caught on, a smacking kiss. So he kissed her butt. He jumped back, thinking something was amiss. A woman has no beard, he was well aware, but what was this rough and had long hair? Alas, he cried, what have you made me do? Tee-hee, she said, and banged the window to. Absolon backed away a sorry pace. You bearded him, said Handy Nicholas. God's body, this is going fair and fit. So you bearded him. You made him kiss your butt. This luckless Absolon heard every bit, and he gnawed his mouth. So angry he became, he said to himself, I'll square you all the same. But who now scrubs and rubs, who chafes his lips with dust, with sand, with straw, with cloth and chase? He's wiping the heck out of his mouth, if not this Absolon. The devil, he says, welcome my soul, if I wouldn't rather be revenged than the whole town in a sack. Alas, he says, if only I held back. His hot love had become all cold and ashen. That'll put a damper on it. He didn't have a curse to spare for passion. The moment when he kissed her on the ass, that was the cure to make his sickness pass. He cried as a child does after being whipped. He railed at love. And quietly he slipped across the street to a smith who was forging out parts that the farmers needed round about. He was busy sharpening coulter and plowshare when Absolon knocked, as though without a care. Undo the door, Jervis, and let me come. What? Who are you? It's I, Absolon. Absalom it is, by Christ's precious tree. Why are you up so early? Lord bless me. What's ailing you? Some gay girl has the power to bring you out? God knows, at such an hour. Yes, by St. Knot. You know well what I mean. St. Knot was a monk and a hermit who lived in Cornwall. There's some notes here, right? Coulter is a knife-like blade. Absalom thought his jokes not worth a bean. Without a word, he let them all go by. He had another kind of fish to fry. And then Jarvis guessed, lend me this coulter here. That's hot in the chimney, friend, he said. Don't fear, I'll bring it right back when I'm through. I need it for a job that I have to do. So he's asking for this knife-like blade that's been what? He's been, grinding from the chimney. It's hot from the chimney. He's a blacksmith, right? So it's used on a plow, if you can use your imagination. So he's asking to borrow it. Of course, said Jervis. Why, if it were gold or coins in a sack, uncounted and untold, as I'm rightful smith, I wouldn't refuse it. But Christ's foot, how on earth do you mean to use it? Let that, said Absolon, be as it may. I'll let you know tomorrow or the next day. And he took the coulter where the steel was cold, and he slipped out with it safely in his hold. And softly to the carpenter's wall he coughed, and then rapped on the window, all as he had done before. Who's knocking there? Said Alison. It is a thief, I swear. No, he said. God knows, my sugar plum, my bird, my darling, it's your Absolon. I've brought a golden ring that my mother gave me. Fine and well cut, as I hope that God will save me. It's yours, if you would just let me have a kiss. Nicholas had got up to take a piss. Notice the language and how different it is than the knight's language. You understand? And thought that he would improve his whole affair. And also now you know why you may want to heed the narrator's or the miller's warning not to, anyway. And thought that he would improve the whole affair. This clerk, before he got up away from there, should give his ass a smack. So he thought that he would improve the whole affair, the student. So before he got there, he should give his ass a smack. And hastily he opened the window. So this is Nicholas now. He's going to have Absolon kiss his butt, but little does he know. And he thrust out quietly his buttocks and haunches all the way, his bum. Up spoke the, and remember it's dark, they can't see anything. Up spoke the clerk, this jolly Absolon. Speak, for I know not where you are, sweetheart. And Nicholas promptly let fly with a fart. as loud as if a clap of thunder broke, so great that he was nearly blinded by the stroke, and he was ready with his hot iron to make a pass, so Absolon caught him fairly on the ass. And off flew the skin, a good handbreadth of fat, lay bare that iron, so scorched Nicholas where he sat. As for the pain, he thought that he would die, and like a madman he began to cry, "Help! Help! Water! Water, for God's own heart!" Don't forget what they're doing. They're waiting for the rain. And this carpenter came to. He woke up with a start. He heard the man cry, "Water!" as if mad. "It's coming now," was the first thought that the carpenter had. "It's Noah's flood. God be our hope." And he sat up with his axe and he chopped the rope. And down at once the whole contraption fell. He hadn't taken time out to buy or sell until he hit the floor in a dead swoon. And then up jumped Nicholas and Alison, and into the street began to cry, "Help! Ho!" until the neighbors all came running high and low, and they poured into the house to see the sight. The man still lay there, passed out cold and white, for in his tumble he had broken his arm. But he himself brought on his greatest harm, for when he spoke, he at once outdone by handy Nicholas and Alison, who told them one and all that he was mad. So Nicholas and Alison are saying that the carpenter's mad. So great a fear of Noah's flood that he had by some delusion that in his vanity he had brought himself these kneading trowels, all three, and they hung them from the roof up there, and he had pleaded with them for God's love to sit there in the loft for company. These neighbors laughed at such a fantasy, and round the loft began to pry and poke, and turned his whole disaster into a joke. He found it of no use to say a word. Whatever reason he offered, no one heard. With oaths and curses, people swore him down until he passed for mad in the whole town. Wit, clerk, and student all stood by each other. They said, "It's clear the man is crazy, brother. Everyone has his laugh about this feud." So Alison, the carpenter's wife, got screwed. And for all the jealous watching that he could try, and Absolon, he kissed her nether eye. And Nicholas got his bottom roasted well, and God saved the troop. That's all I have to tell. You've been reading with Jimmy. This was the Miller's Tale, a bawdy tale, an interesting tale compared to the Knight's Tale, full of virtue, right? And high thoughts. In any case, this was medieval literature translated by Theodore Morrison. Thank you for reading The Miller's Tale with Jimmy. If you have questions, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Please email me. Would love to hear from you. I am getting comments and emails. My YouTube is wide open, and we're getting noticed, and that's a good thing. Thank you. Be careful of what you believe, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to, and really have a good day. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, this was written a long time ago.